Welcome to Neighborful Station, Episode 48, Beach Retreat, Saturday, May 2nd, 2026. You are sitting in the cafe car of a high-speed train, carrying you from Neighborful Station to the beach. As the train passes through the big city, you see brick warehouses that have been transformed into apartments, and railroad spur lines that now serve as walking trails full of public art. The late afternoon sun casts a golden glow over the scene, and you turn your attention to the snack plate of fresh veggies and hummus sitting on the table before you. You smell the red peppers and bright lemon in the hummus, and you reach for one of the carrot sticks on the plate, feeling its cool and smooth texture between your fingers as you hold it up and look at it for a moment. You eat a bite of the carrot stick, reveling in its sweet and crunchy freshness, and you take a deep breath. Your neighbors, Kevin and Tim, come over from the cafe counter, and Tim says, "Hello, you. May we join you?" You say, "Yes, please," and you motion to the open bench across from you. The two of them plop down in their seats, setting their birch beers and slices of tomato pie on the table. Kevin leans his head against the window, closes his eyes, and mutters, "Oh, I've been waiting for this for longer than I realized." Tim says to you, "We're heading to the retreat center at the beach for a kid-free weekend. How about you?" You reply, "I'm going there too. Carrie asked me to come down and swap out all the puzzles before the summer season gets going. Who's looking after the kids?" With his eyes still closed, Kevin answers, "My sister Yasmin came in for the weekend to stay with Jada and DeAndre. The care center paid for her to come, actually." You say, "Really?" Tim nods and adds, "Every family with young kids gets a respite weekend once a year, all expenses paid. They'll provide a sitter if you need, but most folks just have a friend or relative come to town, and the care center pays for their time and travel." You shake your head as you tell them, "I love our town." Tim asks you, "Have you heard how the town ended up owning this place at the beach?" You say, "No." Tim explains, "Back when the town was founded, there was a publisher who started an abolitionist newspaper. His daughter built this house at the beach for her family, but she built it much larger than they needed for themselves. She wanted it to be a place of retreat for their neighbors. It's owned by the land trust now." Kevin mumbles, half asleep, "She was a suffragette, too." Tim nods and says, "That's true. Susan B. Anthony stayed at this place a bunch of times." You say, "Now I'm very excited to visit." Your train pulls into the station at the beach a little before dinner, and as you step out onto the platform with your overnight bag and your suitcase full of jigsaw puzzles, you take in the strong, marshy scent of the back bay next to the station. There is a gentle breeze tracing its way through the station platform, and you feel your shoulders let down as you release a tension you had not even realized you were carrying. You set down your bags, planting your feet on the wooden planks of the platform, and you take a restful, breath. After a brief walk to the retreat house, you settle into your guest room, which looks out over the beach town. There is a family-style dinner served in the dining room, which opens onto a wraparound porch with panoramic views of the beach over the dunes. You bid an early good night to Kevin and Tim, and you sleep so late the next morning that the brightness of the sun in the sky is slightly surprising when you open your eyes. Over the course of the weekend, you go about changing out the puzzles throughout the retreat center, doing a few at a time, and then sitting in a rocking chair on the porch as you read the novel you brought with you for the weekend. You also do some work on a puzzle in the parlor off the lobby, which is where Tim and Kevin find you one afternoon during a weekend in which you have gradually lost all sense of time. "Hello, you," Tim says. "Can we join you for some puzzling?" You answer, "Yes, of course." And they set down their chairs and beach bags, taking the two other open seats at the table. The three of you complete the puzzle just before dinner, with barely a word spoken among you, except when Kevin says at one point, "Smells like they're making their famous asparagus soup tonight." Tim adds, right, it's the beginning of the harvest back home." Everyone goes to their rooms to clean up for dinner, and then you sit together for the meal. Tim and Kevin yawn through their soup and their salads, and Tim says at one point, "I really think this is the first time in ages that I've just let myself feel as tired as I am. But I'm also getting enough rest that I can remember how grateful I am for our kids. They're such a joy." You tell him, "I agree. I feel really lucky to know them." Kevin snaps a finger at Tim and then points at you, saying, "Science night." Tim smiles and says, "Yes, we just talked about this upstairs. The K-12 Science Night is happening at the high school late next week, and it's open to the whole town. The kids would be thrilled to see you there. Will you come?" You say, "Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't miss it." Kevin adds, "Speaking of science, if you haven't done it yet, you really need to go out and walk the beach after dark. The stars are incredible." Despite your own yawns, you take Kevin's advice and make your way down the path between the dunes after dark. With the full moon huge and golden on the horizon, you take in the canopy of stars overhead, looking out into infinity. You feel the residual warmth of the day in the powdery sand beneath the soles of your feet as you take a salty breath. You climb up onto an unoccupied lifeguard stand, welcoming the roar of the ocean, an infinity all its own, as it surrounds you and shelters you in the night. It is so good to make this retreat with you. Thank you for coming home to our town. Visit us today at neighborfulstation.us, where we invite you to join us as an official town resident.
Hey, this is Justin, and I'm calling from Pennsylvania. This story that I want to share happened about 20 years ago, but I still think about it a lot. I had just turned 30, and I wasn't married yet, and I was doing a lot of traveling on my own, kind of on the cheap. And my friend Jeremy was in the Peace Corps at the time, and he was stationed in Honduras. So I decided, okay, I'll go to Honduras. Jeremy knew I was coming, but we didn't really have a plan. I knew he was stationed in a very small village called San Juancito, and I knew I could get there from the capital city of Tegucigalpa. And I knew Jeremy was staying at a house owned by a woman named Ruth, and that was pretty much it. So I was traveling on a bus to Tegucigalpa, and as we finally got close to Tegus, I asked the Honduran woman next to me in my moderately okay Spanish if she knew how to get to San Juancito from the city. Well, this woman not only knew how to get there, but she and her two friends were going to the same bus stop and said we could share a taxi. So I was like, bien, gracias. I had no idea how lucky I was to meet these women until we actually got off the bus in Tegus. We get off the bus, and we're in the middle of the city. There are people and cars and buses and just traffic everywhere. And the women walk me off the bus. They wait with me until my luggage is unearthed from underneath, and then they kind of shepherd me over to the taxi area. And again, people are just everywhere, moving in a million directions. It's very disorienting. And when we got to the bus station, the women didn't leave me until they were sure I knew which bus would get me to San Juancito. And the story does not end there. I got on the bus to San Juancito, and 2 stops later, I'm getting crushed by my backpack and my luggage because the bus is absolutely filled to the brim. There were people standing in the aisle, and a Honduran woman who was about my age had sat down next to me. And of the 53 people on the bus who could have sat next to me, and I know that's how many there were because I counted, the one person who did was Ruth, the woman that my friend Jeremy was staying with. Now, Ruth did not know me, but I told her I was Jeremy's friend, and that was all it took. I would have had absolutely no idea where to go or what to do once I arrived in San Juancito if it had not been for her. It turned out that Jeremy wasn't even there at the time. He was working in another town for a few days. Ruth took me to her home, gave me a room to stay in, invited me to dinner with her family at her mom's house, and was extraordinarily patient with my decidedly mediocre Spanish. Yet again, someone I had just met went out of their way for me, choosing to be kind. And there's a quote I often think of attributed to the poet William Butler Yeats that goes, "A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet." And apparently there's no evidence Yeats ever said anything like that, but I think whoever did come up with that quote was right. I think doing our best to be kind to everyone we meet can make us a world of friends. None of us need to be strangers for long.